October 2019. A Taiwanese woman stands at Everest Base Camp wearing nothing but a bikini in the colors of Taiwan's flag. The temperature hovers near freezing. She waves the flag triumphantly as cameras capture the moment for her social media followers. To her, this was patriotic achievement. To the Sherpa guides watching in horror, it was desecration of sacred ground. Everest isn't just a mountain to them. It's Chomolungma, the goddess mother of the world. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a growing pattern destroying centuries of reverence for the world's highest peaks. What happens when mountains worshipped as gods become nothing more than Instagram backdrops for attention seekers? Her name was Huang, and she had a mission. She carried that patriotic bikini to every continental summit on her quest to climb the 7 summits: Kilimanjaro, Mount Elbrus, and now Everest Base Camp. Each photo was designed to introduce Taiwan to everybody through her social media presence. The images went viral within hours. Taiwanese netizens praised her courage and national pride. Comments flooded in about her bravery in the freezing cold. But the reaction from Nepal told a different story entirely. Local Sherpa guides were outraged. One Facebook post captured their fury perfectly. A Sherpa wrote that Everest is not a runway and asked, "What's next? A naked show on Everest?" The comment spread through the Nepali climbing community like wildfire. These were not just upset locals. These were people whose families had lived in Everest's shadow for generations, treating the mountain as a living deity. The photographer, seemingly oblivious to the cultural earthquake she had triggered, thanked critics for educating her about local customs she didn't know about. That response revealed the heart of the problem: the complete disconnect between Western social media culture and the spiritual reverence that defines these mountains for local communities. But Huang's stunt was just the beginning. The real tragedy came from someone who made bikini climbing her entire brand. Gigi Wu, nicknamed the Bikini Climber, became Taiwan's social media sensation by summiting over 100 peaks wearing nothing but a bikini for her victory photos. Her followers loved the bold imagery. "It just looks so beautiful. What's not to like?" she cheerfully explained. Between 2015 and 2019, Wu built a massive following online through her unconventional celebration style. Each summit meant another bikini photo, another viral moment, another boost to her growing fame. She wasn't disrespecting sacred ground like the Everest incident. Taiwan's mountains don't carry the same spiritual weight, but she was pushing the boundaries of what mountains meant to her audience. The death zone doesn't care about your followers. In January 2019, Wu fell into a ravine while solo trekking in Taiwan's highest mountain range. She died of exposure before rescuers could reach her. The bikini hiker froze to death in the same mountains that had made her famous. International media coverage was brutal. Tabloids fixated on the bikini angle, implying she had been hiking inappropriately dressed. The reality was different. Wu was an experienced mountaineer who only changed into bikinis for summit photos, but the narrative had already formed. It created the image of a bikini climber who died for her social media fame. Her death sparked fierce debate in the climbing community. Fellow hikers defended her as a competent mountaineer with a unique personal style, not an attention-seeking amateur. They mourned an angel in their favorite mountain forest, but the damage was done. Wu's story became a cautionary tale about the real dangers lurking behind social media mountaineering. Meanwhile, back at Everest, the bikini photo trend was spreading. Commercial expeditions reported seeing bodybuilding-style photo shoots at base camp. Trekkers flexing shirtless or posing in sports bras amid ice and prayer flags. The sacred site was becoming a fitness photography studio. In January 2020, the spectacle reached new heights. A Nepali organization staged the Mount Everest fashion runway at Kalapathar, featuring models walking a catwalk in designer outfits at high altitude. Guinness World Records certified it as the world's highest fashion show. The stated goal was promoting sustainable fashion and climate change awareness. Veteran mountaineers and Sherpas bristled at this runway on sacred ground. To them, it was another publicity stunt treating Everest as entertainment. Social media critics asked whether Everest was becoming an amusement park. Respected Sherpas like Cami Rita, who holds the record for most Everest summits, reminded visitors that the mountain was hallowed ground, not a prop for vanity projects. But the most extreme backlash to provocative mountain photography happened thousands of miles from Everest, on a peak that locals considered even more sacred. Mount Kinabalu in Malaysia rises 4,095 meters above Borneo, revered by the indigenous Dusun people as the resting place of ancestral spirits. To them, the mountain was not just sacred, it was literally where their ancestors' souls resided for eternity. In May 2015, 10 Western tourists from Britain, Canada, and other countries reached Kinabalu's summit after a challenging climb. What happened next would trigger an international incident that made Everest's bikini photos look tame by comparison. The group stripped completely naked and began taking photos, challenging local taboos and sparking an international incident. Other to see who could endure the freezing cold the longest while posing nude on the sacred peak. Their local Dusun guide watched in horror, desperately pleading with them to stop. He explained that their actions were deeply offensive to his people's beliefs, that they were desecrating the resting place of spirits. The tourists ignored him completely, laughing as they continued their naked photo session on ground considered holy by generations of indigenous families. The guide's warnings proved prophetic in the most devastating way possible. Exactly 1 week later, on June 5, 2015, a magnitude 5.9 earthquake struck Mount Kinabalu. The mountain shook violently as climbers scrambled for safety. 18 people died as rocks crashed down the slopes, their bodies crushed by the very mountain the naked tourists had mocked. Local officials and villagers did not see this as coincidence. They explicitly blamed the tragedy on the tourists' obscene act, declaring that it had offended the mountain spirits and triggered their deadly anger. Sabah Province's deputy chief minister publicly denounced the foreigners for showing disrespect to the mountain. Village elders insisted that special appeasement rituals be conducted immediately to calm Kinabalu's angry spirits before more people died. The connection between nudity and earthquake had no scientific basis, but that did not matter to the grieving families who had lost loved ones. In their worldview, the mountain spirits had been so deeply insulted by the naked display that they had responded with lethal force. The tourists' moment of exhibitionist fun had, in local eyes, directly caused 18 deaths. Malaysian authorities moved swiftly to send a global message about respecting sacred sites. Police arrested the offending tourists who remained in the country, charging them with public obscenity under Malaysian law. The legal proceedings became international news as the world watched foreigners being prosecuted for nude photos that locals blamed for a deadly natural disaster. 4 of the tourists eventually pleaded guilty in Malaysian court, their earlier laughter replaced by repeated apologies. They admitted their stunt was foolish and deeply disrespectful to local culture. The judge sentenced them to 3 days in jail plus heavy fines, noting that while no scientific link existed between their nudity and the earthquake, their behavior had outraged the local community and violated fundamental moral codes. The convicted tourists were promptly deported after serving their sentences, and they were banned from returning to Malaysia. Their case became global news, covered by major outlets as a stark warning about cultural insensitivity in adventure travel. The spectacle of tourists being blamed for a deadly earthquake served as the most extreme example of what happens when Western exhibitionism collides with indigenous spiritual beliefs. The Kinabalu catastrophe revealed the mathematical brutality of cultural destruction. One group's moment of naked exhibitionism versus centuries of spiritual reverence. 1 week of international mockery versus 18 lives lost to what locals saw as divine retribution. The arithmetic was devastating, and it sent shockwaves through the adventure travel community worldwide. Travel advisories began warning tourists about respecting local customs at sacred sites. Adventure tour companies started including cultural sensitivity training in their briefings. The message was clear. What might seem like harmless fun to visitors could be seen as grievous insult by locals, with real legal and social consequences that could destroy lives. The naked tourists of Kinabalu had learned the hard way that some mountains demand more than just physical respect. They demand cultural humility from those who dare to stand on their peaks. The bikini photos and naked stunts were not isolated acts of individual disrespect. They were symptoms of a larger disease infecting the world's highest peaks. Commercial expedition companies had transformed Everest from a sacred mountain into a deadly tourist attraction, prioritizing profit over respect and safety protocols. The mathematics of modern Everest are brutal. Commercial climbs cost upward of $70,000 per person, creating enormous financial pressure on guide services to deliver Instagram-worthy experiences regardless of conditions or cultural sensitivity. Clients were not just paying for summit attempts. They were paying for bragging rights, social media content, and the ultimate adventure selfie. This commercial machine systematically silenced the voices that mattered most. Sherpa guides, whose families had revered Chomolungma for centuries, found themselves forced to accommodate Western clients demanding photo opportunities that violated everything they held sacred. The economic dependency was complete. Sherpa families needed the climbing income to survive, but earning it meant watching their sacred mountain get treated like an amusement park. The environmental destruction followed the cultural destruction. Commercial expeditions left behind massive amounts of trash, abandoned oxygen tanks, and human waste at sacred sites. Base camp became a garbage dump, littered with the debris of ego-driven adventures. Prayer flags, placed by Sherpas to honor the mountain spirits, were used as colorful backdrops for fitness photos and fashion shoots. Guide services marketed Everest as the ultimate personal branding opportunity. Their promotional materials featured clients posing triumphantly on the summit, arms raised in victory poses that would look perfect on LinkedIn profiles and motivational speaking circuits. The mountain's spiritual significance was completely erased from the sales pitch. Everest wasn't Chomolungma anymore. It was a product. The brutal arithmetic of ego versus preservation played out in every aspect of the commercial climbing industry. Personal achievement stories sold better than cultural respect. Extreme photo opportunities generated more social media engagement than traditional mountaineering ethics. The market rewarded exhibitionism and punished humility. Even Nepal's government eventually recognized the damage being done to their most sacred peak. In 2021, authorities banned nudity on Everest and limited what images climbers could share from the mountain. Offenses like unauthorized filming of others or attempts at high-altitude pornography were met with stern warnings and potential prosecution. But the new regulations came too late to undo decades of commercialization damage. The cultural disconnect was already complete. Western climbers continued arriving with expectations shaped by social media marketing, not spiritual reverence. They came seeking personal transformation through conquest, not cultural connection through respect. The commercial machine had succeeded in its primary mission. It had turned the world's most sacred mountain into the world's most expensive photo opportunity. The cost was not just measured in dollars or environmental damage. It was measured in the systematic destruction of indigenous spiritual beliefs that had protected these peaks for millennia. These mountains have claimed lives for millennia. They demand respect, not selfies. The next time you see a bikini photo from Everest Base Camp, remember the Sherpas who consider it sacred ground. Remember Gigi Wu, who died chasing the perfect mountain selfie. Remember the 18 people who died on Kinabalu 1 week after tourists mocked its spirits. The brutal mathematics are simple. Human ego versus nature's unforgiving power. Nature always wins. Subscribe for more stories about how human arrogance fails against the world's deadliest peaks.